In some of the ISO-based controllers, G98 and G99 are used to adjust the cutting tool return point after each drilling cycle. G98 code causes the cutting tool to return to the initial drilling start plane. G99 code causes the tool to return to the R plane instead. Keep in mind that, in some ISO-based controllers, these G codes are used to set the feed rate mode. However, we are not currently dealing with this use of the G98, G99. What is important to us is the use of these commands in drilling cycles. In Monospost Developer, we do not use a variable or a word to set the G98, G99 codes, because these codes mostly do not change while the NC program is running. Instead, we manually type G98 or G99 in the format program start command, or in the format operation start command. Since you can restart the NC program from a later block, it would be much safer to write G98, G99, both in format operation start and format program start. The first and most important thing to know is that, in Monospost Developer, we always use G98 instead of G99. Using G99 seems to be more meaningful, since the cutting tool does not retract much after each drilling cycle. And at a first glance, this may seem as an unimportant small change. However, it is not. Be careful, using G99 may cause collisions. This is because most CAM systems retract the cutting tool to initial drilling plane after drilling cycles. And if you use G99, the positioning moves between drilling cycles and at operation ends will be totally different than what you see in the CAM system. Therefore, we do not recommend to use G99, and we always use G98 instead. If you really need to use G99, you must change your retract settings in your CAM program. You must define the retract plane, same with your R clearance plane. Or in other words, if you define 3 mm as your R plane, you must also define your retract plane as 3 mm. This will make your CAM system works as if G99 is active. By doing so, the tool paths shown in the CAM system and post-processor output will be the same, and your CAM will automatically generate positioning moves to avoid collisions. We also recommend to deactivate simultaneous positioning if you use G99. Simultaneous and home return positioning are two different positioning styles in Monospost Developer. When simultaneous positioning is active, the cutting tool doesn't retract to home position. In home return positioning, the cutting tool returns to home position for each new operation in different rotary axis orientations. You can deactivate simultaneous positioning inside action linear motion. Simultaneous positioning becomes active when the rotary axis change amounts are lower than these four limits. And for higher rotary axis changes, home return positioning moves will become active instead. However, activating simultaneous positioning can become dangerous when you use the G99. Instead, home return positioning will be much safer on rotary axis changes. Therefore, it is best to disable these kind of positioning moves in drilling operations when you use G99. This can be done by setting all these parameters as 0. However, I cannot change these limits here, because if I do, all operation types will be affected by this change. So I add a new case inside event linear, rapid motion for drilling operations. And, in the new action linear motion inside this case, I set these limits to 0 for all these four parameters. And after this change, the simultaneous positioning limits will be 0 for drilling operations only. Other operation types will not be affected from this change.